I want to get started with this first story coming out of Detroit, Michigan. So if you guys remember, there was an uncommitted campaign against Joe Biden, and this was during the Democrat primary. So Arab voters in Detroit and actually the Dearborn, Michigan area, they decided to vote uncommitted for the Democrat primary instead of voting for Joe Biden or any of the other Democrat candidates to send a strong message to Joe Biden. And I said back then that if we're going to have a serious uncommitted campaign, it needs to go through November. You can't just do it for the Dem primary. Well, now it looks as though that is the case. Now, we're going to talk about the pros and cons about this. But recently, Rashida Tlaib actually spoke at an event. It was called the People's Conference for Palestine event in Detroit, where she is speaking to, of course, the Arab voting community and taking this uncommitted campaign a step further going into November. Again, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons about this, and I'm going to tell you what else they could be doing that would actually be even more effective. So let's go ahead and get started with this speech here from Rashida.
Surprise guest. Something that we weren't expecting, but you all know what state we're in and what city we're in, yes? Detroit, Michigan. And so we will be joined by Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Also, shout out to Breakthrough News. And at the Stu Studio for covering this. Want to make sure I give credit where it's due.
I love you. It was either Demi Falastini or welcome to Detroit. We'll end with welcome to Detroit, but thank you all so much. Y'all, welcome. Welcome to the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit. I don't know if I need to remind you all, but Detroit, we birth movements, not just labor movements. We birth movements on environmental justice, on women's rights, and so much more. So welcome, gain strength from this amazing, beautiful black city that raised me.
So I was actually surprised that she referenced it that way as the black city. It was pretty interesting.
You will always, every single one of you fighting for the liberation of Palestine will always be welcome in my city. Detroit's known this for a long time, what the Palestinian people have been saying for a long, long time. The Nakba never ended. 1.7 Palestinians, nearly 3/4 of Gaza's population have been displaced. I don't even like saying it like that. Forcibly removed. They are using the weapon of starvation. They are literally allowing children to starve to death with our money. We know the atrocities being committed by the apartheid government of Israel are horrific and well documented. You know, I didn't have to wait for the Guardian investigation to tell us what they found, which is that Israeli snipers have been deliberately targeting children. Doctor after doctor has come to my office showing me images of 6, 7, 8-year-old children with bullet holes in their skulls. Many of them showing me images of literally white phosphorus burning the flesh of their children's skin off. Things they have never seen in their entire medical lives. They told me, we've done medical missions all over the world. This is something you have never, ever seen before. all know and feel it. And I know I feel so much guilt. I think we all do. Their lives and the futures have been stolen. Many of them clinging to each other as they are being bombed in their beds, buried under rubble, still holding on to each other. All across Gaza, the medical system has been deliberately destroyed. That's a war crime. Well over 100 journalists have been murdered for reporting on the apartheid government, Israel's government's crimes against humanity. Again, targeting journalists, war crimes. In the past few weeks, myself and so many people on my team, we've been watching the multiple mass graves being uncovered, several locations where the Israeli government forces have been withdrawing from. Over 390 bodies have been discovered at Al-Nasser, Al-Shifa hospitals, including women and children.
Let me just answer this really quick. A good question here. Stag Party is your party. Why murder a journalist? To stop the spread of information that you don't want getting out, to stop that type of narrative. That's why they're killing journalists. That's also why they tried to remove Al Jazeera from Israel as well.
Showing signs of torture, execution, and being buried alive. Just imagine. War crimes. President Biden, I hope you hear us loud and clear. Attacking the authority of the International Criminal Court and interfering in the legal process is nothing more than an attempt to prevent the genocidal maniac Netanyahu and his senior Israeli officials from being held accountable for those crimes against humanity. You are an enabler, President Biden.
So let me chime in here for just a second and we'll get back to the speech. Okay. I will say I appreciate that she's calling out the fact that Joe Biden is enabling this. But one thing you have to keep in mind as well, Rashida Tlaib, there's been a number of times where she has kind of flip-flopped on issues. And I'll bring up one that it kind of relates to particularly the policing movement, right? So defund the police. Some of you may not remember, but Rashida Tlaib actually was in favor of defunding the police during the BLM movement. She spoke in favor of that. She said, yes, we got to stand with, the protesters, et cetera. Yes, the police are an issue. But as time went by and she was in Congress longer, she backed away from defunding the police. You don't hear her talk about that the way that she used to. She wasn't alone. Other squad members have also walked away from defunding the police. So just FYI, I think the only person who still talks about it now is Cori Bush. And remember, I told you last year, they actually had silenced her team because she was still talking about defund the police. So the reason why I don't get excited about this, about Rashida Tlaib speaking about it, is not because, number one, she's spoken about this issue before, way before October 7th. She has been vocal about this issue. This is her community. These are her people. They are directly affected. But it's kind of strange to me that if you're really this pissed at Joe Biden, instead of just having an uncommitted movement, why not move those people into a third party? Why not move those people towards one of the third party or independent candidates that is actually correct on this issue? And so until I see Rashida Tlaib trying to organize people to get behind the candidates that actually are speaking out against this and have been speaking out against this for years, I'm talking about people who have a track record of calling out Israel's atrocities and what has been happening to the Palestinian people. I have a question mark and it gives me pause because uncommitted. So we get into November and you decide uncommitted and you're not going to support Joe Biden. Totally cool. I'm not supporting Joe Biden either. But why not use that energy and move those people away from the duopoly? That's what I would do. If I was in that position, that's exactly, I do it through the show. But if I was in Rashida Tlaib's position, that is what I would be doing. What is the next step? Where do people go from here? So that's one of the things that I have to say about this uncommitted movement.
The International Court of Justice just ruled that the Israeli government must stop its invasion of Rafah. But President Biden says what's happening in Gaza is not a genocide. Where's your red line, President Biden? This is not even consistent with his own views on international law in the past, where he sit there and called and said Putin must be held accountable at the ICC. But he shields the murderous war criminal Netanyahu in the Israeli government official. They are asking us not to believe our own eyes. Each year, our country, and I say our country because it is our country, sends billions of dollars to maintain an apartheid government and support the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians.
And even knowing that, and Rashida has known this from day one since she's been in the Democratic Party, and even knowing that, Rashida Tlaib still refuses to leave the Democratic Party. She is censured. Remember, they censured her in Congress, right? So remember, during that censor hearing, you have to remember that there were even Democrat politicians that voted to censure Rashida Tlaib. So that is why I always want you, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to bust your bubble. I just want you to look outside of the bubble, so to speak, right? I want you to pay close attention to what someone says versus what they actually do. Rashida Tlaib can leave the Democratic Party today. Kyrsten Sinema left the Democratic Party while she was still in the Senate. She said, yeah, I'm not going to be Democrat anymore. I'm just going to be an independent. She can leave the Democratic Party today. And since she has such large support from her community, I would argue that she could still win re-election as an independent candidate or as a third party candidate because she has the base to back her. So the question that you need to ask yourself, why is Rashida Tlaib still a part of the Democratic Party? Yet this is the party that she is chastising right now because of what is happening to her very own people. So we have to pay attention to their actions, not just what they say.
You all, every single bullet, every single gun, every single weapon, bombs that we send is a sacrifice of our own schools here at home. Many of which, when I go into the schools, have garbage bags over their drinking fountains because they don't have clean water. Every single bomb and bullet and weapons we send to genocide is less money to house the unhoused. When many of the veterans we send to support endless wars based on lies come back literally needing health care and nowhere to go, but we'll send weapons like this for genocide. When I tell my colleagues, we gotta fight for clean air and clean water, who's gonna pay for it? How about we stop supporting genocide and supporting endless wars? I know you all have heard me. Many of my colleagues come whispering to me, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you said that. Why are you whispering? Well, Rashida, you know, I don't support Netanyahu. Well, you just send him $14 billion. No conditions, nothing. When I watch my colleagues, one by one, voting yes to send $14 billion to the apartheid regime, those committing genocide, all I kept thinking about is that us, the United States, is the primary investor and funder of genocide. We're literally co-conspirators.
And to that point about the genocide point, I just want to add this. It's not just Gaza. It's also the Congo. It's also Sudan. And we're going to actually there will be a gentleman on the show, not this week, I think it's next week, to explain the conflict in Sudan and what's happening there. But the U.S. government is behind all of that. The Congo, Sudan. So it's not just Gaza.
It's shameful. It's shameful when I come back to my district and I hear my seniors tell me, Rashida, when are we going to get an increase in Social Security? And they turn around and turn that TV on and see that we send billions and billions of dollars to literally slaughter children, families, their fathers, their grandparents, their aunts. But wait, you know when my colleagues are outraged? They're outraged over the protest on college campuses in our country. They're more outraged than that, than the atrocities happening right now on the ground in Palestine, the war crimes. Y'all, there's no universities in Gaza. We all know this. We say it over and over again. And now, if they get their way, they're going to silence the universities here at home. It is appalling to witness the crackdown and violent repression of First Amendment protected speech and assembly on college campuses around the country. I just left Wayne State University's student encampment. My alma mater. That's the school that I graduated from. You know, students are putting their bodies on the line to demand an end to this genocide, to demand that their universities divest. And it did not start today. They've been talking about divestment for years.
Let me pause for a second because there's a couple comments I want to address. I'm so glad that you guys are seeing through this, right? I'm so proud of you guys. Truth Hurts says something off about Tlaib. Les says she's just telling the audience what they want to hear. And then I want to bring up this comment here from Be Easy because this speaks to a point that I've noticed about a lot of politicians in Congress. Be Easy said, would she make this same speech about Haiti? And that is a good question, because what I've learned over time is that a lot of these politicians, they speak to the needs of the people in their district, in their community. So who is in Rashida Tlaib's community, right? So she said this before, and we've talked about this, largest Arab population in the United States, right? She's also Palestinian herself, so she's speaking to the needs of her constituents. We've seen AOC do this as well. I don't think AOC really speaks passionately about Haiti either, but she speaks to the needs of the people that are in her district, the population of people that are there. Remember, AOC came out against reparations for descendants of slavery. Everybody remember this. I showed the article, the interview that she had. I showed that article on the show last year. So everyone's got to remember these things. This is what they do. So when people say they're a squad, they're supposed to be voting as a block. Remember when Cori Bush said, when we vote alone. We vote for what our district, what our community, like those people actually want and things like that. So that is a really good point. Yeah, everyone should be talking about these issues. Everyone should be talking about this, whether it's Haiti, whether it's Congo, whether it's Sudan, everyone should be talking about it. But again, what Rashida Tlaib is showing you is that most of the time people speak to and they're more passionate about things that affect them directly. And that includes their constituents. So that goes back to what I said before about her walking away from defund the police, which whether you agree with that or not, that was an issue that she was in support of. And as time went by, she walked away from it. So pay attention to that.
They're demanding their university divest from the same weapons and manufacturers that are sending the bombs to murder innocent children in Gaza and their families, to bomb literally hospital after hospital, targeting and killing journalists. But I want you all to think for a minute. Why are our universities invested in weapons in war in the first place? Why?
So she's talking about investing in weapons for war, but let's go ahead and change the countries, okay? Let's pretend that we're not talking about Israel. We're not talking about Gaza. Let's say we're talking about Russia and Ukraine. Let's think about the way that politicians voted, including people like Rashida Tlaib, voted to send more funding, more weapons to Ukraine. So this is where some of the hypocrisy comes in, because people are like, and we'll get to Elizabeth Warren later. We'll get to Elizabeth Warren later in the show, because some of the same people speaking out against the weapons that are being sent to Gaza, which everyone should speak out against that, some of those same politicians voted to send weapons to Ukraine. So, you know,
why are these these universities sending militarized police after their students to protect those investments in war. They are literally spraying them with chemicals for saying, save lives. It is disgraceful that the Biden administration and my colleagues in Congress continue to smear them for protesting to save lives, no matter faith or ethnicity. It is cowardly. But we're not going to forget in November, are we? I want you all to know, and I've said this before, it is hard being there. You know, it's hard being in Congress when you see them using racist tropes to describe those that are saying Palestinians deserve to live. Hateful, racist tropes about why we're standing up and saying enough. But I proudly hang the Palestinian flag in front of my congressional office.
And by the way, those comments are also made by politicians that are in the Democratic Party as well. There's also Democrats that heavily support Israel. In fact, a lot of them, they've also made some pretty cringe comments about the Palestinian people. But again, Rashida chooses to remain in that party.
I don't need to tell you that you're on the right side. I don't need to. But I'll be damned if I wait 10 years before they apologize to all of you for doing what was right at this moment. You know, mashallah, I am the eldest of 14 children. Say mashallah. And I can tell you, from when I was 12 years old, transiting for my mom, and when people said stupid things to her and I would go off on them, she'd say to me, Yamma lesh? Lesh iti al-wahida btsawi li mashakil. She'll say, Mom, why, dear? Why are you, out of all the kids, cause me trouble? Because you had to meet my grandparents. You had to. There's nothing like a Palestinian city. Nothing.
We're just going to speed up here just a little bit, right about there. There we go.
If my city was here, wallahi, first of all, she would try to cook for all of you. If my city was here, she'd tell you all it shouldn't be controversial to say stop the genocide. She'd always say to me, Lesh ya city bi'amalu heka? Why are they doing this to us? And how do you tell a woman? It's because your mere existence is the threat. And so I proudly walk on as a Palestinian American woman, the granddaughter of Siti Muftiya Siti Shama, on that house floor, unapologetic. And sometimes it's hard, but being in space with all of you, it reminds me of what my beautiful, incredible Black city reminded me, always, always. They remind me when I got censured, no one's allowed to tell you shut up but us, Rashida.
Okay, let's go ahead and stop it there, because I have some things to say, and then I have two more clips that I want to show you as well. So until you see Rashida Tlaib leave the Democratic Party, hold your breath. And I say that because as long as she is still in the party, guys, she is still in line with the Biden administration. And that's why I'm telling you not to buy it. That's how electoral politics works. She's still going along with what Dem leadership wants. Hakeem Jeffries, like, it's not just Joe Biden, but also the minority leader of the House. So as long as if she was serious, she would walk away from the Democratic Party. She was really trying to make a strong change. It wouldn't just be about voting uncommitted. It would be about her leaving the Democratic Party to make a serious message towards Joe Biden and organizing with her community as well. Then, because like I said, it's not enough just to be uncommitted. Then you gather those people who are uncommitted and you get them to change and shake up this freaking electoral system. And you do that by you getting them to vote for one of the third party or independent candidates, whether it's Jill Stein or Cornel West, that come correct on this issue. Until I see you moving in that kind of way, I just, what is, these are just speeches to me. It's just a speech, because I always ask you guys, what is the next step? What is the end game? Because just saying I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden in November if he doesn't stop this, how does that truly shake up the two-party system if you're not moving those people towards something that actually is coming correct on this issue? And I don't see her doing that. I don't see Rashida Tlaib trying to have some type of coalition with Jill Stein or Dr. Cornel West when it comes to this issue. I don't see that happening. She's still within the party, folks. Don't fall for it. And as long as she's still in the party, she's still going to walk those party lines. I wouldn't be surprised if she already received approval to speak at this event from Dem leadership. That's how this works. So we have to be very cautious here. We have to be very cautious. And again, to that point that Be Easy brought up, remember, they usually speak out and come out and fight for the issues that directly affect them. And that is what you are seeing that's happening. But Rashida Tlaib, we have known her before to flip-flop and to walk back on some of these positions when too much heat comes her way. And if you were all in, and I mean 100% all in, you would exit the party along with it. You wouldn't still stay in the party. Get out of here. Kirsten Sinema left the party while she's still in the Senate. She's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Bye. I'm now independent. Rashida Tlaib could do the same thing. So why is she still in the party? Got to ask yourself those questions. And we'll have to wait and see what happens in November. We'll have to wait and see. She's made those threats towards Joe Biden, but we'll have to wait and see if she sticks with that and she fully decides, no, we're not going to vote for him. And then, like I said, and then what? Is she going to push those people towards the... If Rashida Tlaib really wants this to end, if she really wants someone in there that is not going to support the state of Israel the way that the Democrat establishment is and the way that the GOP is, why isn't Rashida Tlaib trying to push her constituents to leave the Democratic Party and support the candidates or one of the candidates that supports the Palestinian determination? How has she not done this yet? Guys, wake up, look around you. Look around you. You have people, even Crystal and Kyle, who are Democrats and continue to push and support the Democratic Party. Even they already endorsed Jill Stein. So now we'll have to wait and see what happens in November. But they already endorsed Jill Stein publicly. And Rashida's still in the Democratic Party. Now, to this point, though, you know what happened this weekend. Joe Biden does not have a red line. I told you he really did not have a red line. And the State Department is getting a lot of heat on this. And that's why I said this will be the perfect time to push her constituents towards one of the candidates outside of the duopoly. And I want you to see this reporter is questioning John Kirby here. This just shows you how things are shaking up. This is the moment, guys.
So how does this not violate the red line that the president laid out?
As I said, we don't want to see a major ground operation. We haven't seen that at this point.
How many more charred corpses does he have to see before the president considers a change in policy?
We don't want to see a single more innocent life taken. And I kind of take a little offense at the question. No civilian casualties is the right number of civilian casualties. And this is not something that we've turned a blind eye to, nor has it been something we've ignored or neglected to raise with our Israeli counterparts, including, Ed, this weekend as a result of this particular strike. Now, they're investigating it, so let's let them investigate it and see what they come up with.
But the president doesn't have like a personal limit to this?
The president has been very clear and very direct about what our expectations are for Israeli operations in Rafa specifically, but in Gaza writ large. We don't support, we won't support a major ground operation in Rafa. And we've, again, been very consistent on that. And the president said, that should that occur, then it might make him have to make different decisions in terms of support. We haven't seen that happen at this
Why
point.
not have
But you do support the operation as long as you are supplying the weapons. You do absolutely support it. So you guys see what's happening? We have journalists constantly pushing back on the State Department. Now is really the time to get enough people to walk away from the two-party system.
him come out and say that himself?
The president has been speaking to leaders throughout the region on a regular basis. He has been addressing you guys in various fora. You've got plenty of opportunities to talk to the president, including, I might add, in a press conference last week.
Okay, so there's that one. And then there's one more. Again, to push on the point about Rashida Tlaib not making the ask big enough. And I've been really serious about this when it comes to organizing. So we have another reporter is also questioning John Kirby here. And John Kirby gets a little frustrated and basically starts talking about how this is not Tel Aviv. Listen to this.
Yeah, I know you said tanks are moving along the corridor, but we are seeing tanks in Rafa. We've now seen strikes continue to kill civilians, including children.
Yeah.
Just for, an average American who's watching their taxpayer dollars go to this, can you explain to them how this isn't a major military operation? Or just maybe it would help to explain what is a major ground operation when it comes to the Biden administration.
I thought I already did that, but I'm happy to do it again. Now, first of all, I am not the IDF spokesman, and this is not Tel Aviv.
First of all, yes, you are. And yes, it is. Because the U.S. government is doing whatever Israel tells them to do. Instead of the U.S. government making demands towards Israel and withholding weapons, the U.S. government is doing exactly what Israel wants them to do. So, yeah. I will say you are the spokesperson for the IDF, John Kirby. And yeah, I will say that it is Tel Aviv. When you have an organization like AIPAC that owns most of the politicians in freaking Congress, I would say that it is. When you have all these politicians going around telling people that Israel has a right to defend itself, but apparently nobody else does, I would say that it is. When you have a genocidal maniac whose administration is constantly killing civilians and thousands of children who have nothing to do with this conflict at all, and you go along with it, I would say you are very much controlled. And that reporter had every right to question you the way that he did.
This is the White House press briefing room. And I am not today or any other day going to take it upon myself to speak to Israeli military operations, the planning, the intent, and the tactics that they're using. You should be asking Admiral Hagari that question. He's the IDF spokesman, not me. What I will tell you is that what we have seen is essentially, so far, what the Israelis said they were going to do. They were going to close down the crossing to shut off the revenue to Hamas that comes across that crossing, at least for a while. And they were going to go after Hamas terrorists in as precise a way as possible, that they were not going to, quote unquote, smash into Rafah with a lot of ground forces. As you and I speak here today, that is still the case. We have not seen them smash into Rafah. We have not seen them go in with large units, large numbers of troops, in columns and formations, in some sort of coordinated maneuver against multiple targets on the ground. That is a major ground operation. We have not seen that.
So you see what they're trying to do now? Now they're trying to basically say that it has to be, this ground formation. There has to be thousands in a military lines and all this kind of stuff in order for that to pass. Listen, the U.S. government is full of it. John Kirby's full of it. A lot of these people, they're all bought and paid for. And I will add this part as well. If Rashida Tlaib is actually serious about sending a strong message to Joe Biden, what Rashida Tlaib should be doing is organizing her constituents to vote outside of the duopoly and vote for one of the candidates that actually cares about the Palestinian people and is not afraid to speak up against the state of Israel. That's what Rashida Tlaib would be doing. Rashida Tlaib would be leaving the Democratic Party to make that even more fierce. Rashida Tlaib is trying to hold your hand until November. And I don't know about you, but I pulled my hand away quite a while ago. And she's trying to hold on to your hand. You'll see. Come November, You'll see. Do you know the type of coalition that could be organized right now to get behind one of the people that are outside the duopoly? Do you understand what could happen? What could really come from this? You know, you're telling people to be uncommitted, but you're not sending them nowhere. Huh? You're telling people to be uncommitted, but then you're not sending them nowhere. Where do you want them to go? What do you want them to do? It's a mess. It's a mess. Oh, we got to think about this, people. We are going to be uncommitted for you if you don't. And go where? And do what? You won't even, will she mention it? Will Rashida Tlaib even mention Jill Stein or Cornel West's name? I don't see her sending them to any other type of a movement that is going to help her people and fight for her people. So pull your hand away and tell Rashida stop holding on to your damn hand. That's what you do. We're going to go to some of the comments here in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button. Thank you very much. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Can't fall for this, guys. Can't fall for it. Remember, focus on their actions.